What if Strange Supreme intervened? Hello everyone and welcome to All Things Watched. In this video we are going to talk about Season 2 finale of the MCU multiversal anime What If, and of course this was an absolute awesome series and I absolutely love the first season and also I love this season as well. So we are going to review and break down scene by scene this finale. So let's just go right ahead and jump in. So the episode begins right where the previous episode ends off, with Agent Carter, or Captain Carter, sorry, although she was Agent Carter as well, with Peggy Carter still being stuck back in 1602. Now, this episode literally picks up right from there because it opens with Strange and he's telling her about another threat about another threat that is threatening the multiverse, and he basically asks her to help. And so when this happens, the Watcher actually intervenes and gives us an actual backstory to Supreme Strange, which is more of like a little flashback, more of like a little recap of the events of season 1. For example, they show us, Strange going to Christina's funeral, which we know was from that universe where they recruited Supreme Strange to begin with in season 1. When the Watcher recruited him, he had just gone through this, this very unfortunate event. However, in that universe, no matter what, he was always meant, or at least this version of Strange is always meant to lose Christine, and they actually re-show the scene of his dimension and his universe actually dying. But I thought it was so hard to rewatch, even though it's only a recap, basically filling it in the gaps, which, by the way, also tells us for sure that this is the same Supreme Strange as season 1. So that's really cool that they actually continued Peggy's story and now Supreme Strange story. But here, when we see this recap, we see it now with the season 2 updated and upgraded visuals. The animation here is just devastating, seeing him lose Christina again, and which ultimately ended up being the reason why he became so powerful to begin with, was because he wanted to save her, but ultimately he was not able to. And so they started to give all this recap, and it really made me suspicious because I started to think to myself, well, why are they reminding us of stuff that we've already seen? And so then we end up coming back to the modern day then, and the story picks up again, and now Doctor Strange, or Supreme Strange, has now taken Peggy Carter, or Captain Carter, and he's taken her to a place that he calls the Sanctum Infinitorium, I think is what he says, or Infinitorium or something like that. And anyways, this is a place that he has built all by himself, and it doesn't take very long for us to discover why, because he tells us why, because he says that he was actually collecting extremely powerful villains, extremely powerful people that have been threatening the multiverse. And if you can see here at the picture that I just happened to screenshot, there was no reason or rhyme why I took this shot. I just took it. This just happened to be where I took it. You can see here that we got young Peter Quill down in the bottom left, and I'm not 100% sure who that is in the bottom right, but it's either 1602 Red Skull, but a part of me wonders if it wasn't Doom. But actually, now that I'm looking at it, it looks like there might even be a Black Panther necklace on him, so I'm not 100% sure who that is. But when I first glanced, I thought it was Doom. But either way, this is what the Sanctum Infinitorium is all about. It's all about him collecting these superpower villains and holding them here captive. But we don't know why right yet, but it will be revealed later on in the episode what his plan really is. And I think that this episode is actually very important for the MCU as a whole, and I'll explain to you why I think it's so important, given the idea and the concepts that this episode throws at us. The idea of Strange going through all this for the sake of creating something, which we'll get into later on, which sort of opens up the door for Secret Wars with Battle World and all this sort of stuff, but we'll talk about that after. So anyways, he now basically tells Peggy that the villain is actually female, and he ends up basically transporting her in there, and and getting everything ready to put her in this world to stop this female villain. And Peggy basically says, well, how am I going to know who it is? And Stephen Strange says, trust me, you'll know. And so we get a really cool scene here. I love the animation with the snow. We have Peggy walking through the snow here with her shield. Looks so cool. And of course, as always, it doesn't take very long for the Watcher to arrive. And it seems to me like throughout this episode, the Watcher sort of is warning Peggy, but he never truly comes out straight out and tells her why. It's like he tells her enough to make her sort of concerned, but he never says why. And he even alludes to the idea of him not sort of wanting to see, what's going to happen in the future. It's almost like he doesn't want to watch the events of what's about to happen to unfold, but a part of me wonders if he does he know or does he not know. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he does know, but I'm not 100% sure. But I also liked something else that he says as well, which actually I think he said it in the previous episode. Now that I'm thinking about it, but he said watching is not the same as seeing. So I thought that was very clever writing. But I think that might have been in the previous episode. Now that I'm thinking about it. But anyways, Peggy keeps going through the wilderness and keeps going through the forest, and she ends up seeing this blur go by extremely fast, almost like the Flash. And as soon as we seen that, I knew right away that this was going to be Kahori, although I think they pronounce it as if she has a D, like Kahori. So I'm not really 100% sure. So I'm just going to pronounce it as the way it's spelled, Kahori. But they do pronounce it. I'm pretty sure I've heard them pronounce her name with a D, so I'm not 100% sure. But when I'm looking at the credits here, it doesn't say Kahori, it says Kahori, so I'm not really 100% sure how to pronounce it, so I'm just going to say Kahori. But either way, Peggy is now faced off against Kahori. So as soon as this happened, I knew right away, because we already seen the origin of her in a previous episode, in a previous What If Season 2 episode. I knew right away that there's something off about this. There's something going on with Strange. There's no way that she's the villain, especially because of the fact that he was telling Peggy that this villain is out trying to destroy the multiverse and is really causing the universe to collapse and all this kind of stuff. And there's just no way that Corey would really do that, Kahori. And so as soon as Peggy ends up interacting with her, Strange ends up using some form of teleportation spell, as you can see at their feet, and he actually ends up sucking them into a portal where he brings them back to the Sanctum infinitorium. And of course, the moment they fall, he starts attacking Kahori right away, and this obviously makes Peggy question the motives behind what Strange is doing. She doesn't really understand why Strange would want to hurt someone like Kahori, when Kahori was not only not a threat to Peggy, but she even seems to be able to back up her story, and she's accusing Strange of actually being the villain. And of course, she ends up telling Peggy that Strange is destroying the multiverse. He's collecting these people, and she actually tells Peggy as well, Strange is not only collecting villains, but he's also collecting heroes. And then we get this beautiful shot, this beautiful animation, where Peggy is standing up and sort of seeing Strange facing off against Kahori. He's shooting his magic at her, and it's very symbolic as well, seeing this shot, because Peggy here standing right in the middle, but she's friends with both sides. She's friends with Strange, but she's also now realizing that Kahori is not a threat, and that she's probably telling the truth. So it's almost like on the one hand you got the light, on the other hand you have the darkness, and now Peggy is right in the middle because she's friends with them both. But we all know that she's very much like Captain America. She's going to do what's right. She's not going to choose Strange just because she's friends with him. She's going to do what the right thing is. And so she ends up coming over and trying to attack Strange, but all of her attacks are just useless because he has some form of barrier going around him. If you can remember back to season 1, he has extreme powers. He's been studying all these, like the book, like the Darkhold, and all these weird demons and creatures and everything were after taking over his body. Like, he's like extremely powerful. He's probably the most powerful being in the What If series from both seasons, season 1 and 2. In fact, you know what? He might even be the most powerful being that we've seen ever in all of the MCU, even more than our 616 Doctor Strange. He's probably even more powerful than Wanda, at least our version of Wanda as of right now. She hasn't went full-blown Scarlet Witch yet. A part of me even wonders if in this version of Strange, Strange. He might even be more powerful than the Dark Phoenix. Not really sure how powerful, what the measurement of his power is, but either way, Peggy's not able to break through that spell that he has. So she does the only thing that she can think of. She uses her shield, and she throws it at all of those little capsules that are holding both the villains and the heroes, which I thought was pretty clever. And it was also really cool too, because we all know, looking at this episode, the moment she does this, we're about to see some really cool cameos. And this is also finally, I think, how they sort of tied in the rest of the season. Because in the first season they had a lot of build up to the finale. They had a lot of build up to Ultron, and then him becoming Infinity Ultron. Whereas even in the previous review, we talked about how I felt like this season didn't really have all that connectivity between the episodes like the first season. But this was a great way to sort of connect everything now by having all these heroes that we just witnessed now be in this finale. And it also makes sense too, once we learn that Strange is the villain. Now this makes sense as well as to how this season connects with the first season. And I also really liked how his motive was still Christina. I think, some people, I've seen a couple people complain about that online, about sort of recycling that same idea, that same story, retelling that he's just in love with Christina and this is why he's, doing all this. But it's also important to remember that in the first season he destroyed his universe to save her, and now he has the power to probably literally save her. So, it's just, important to keep that in mind. So Peggy ends up busting out all these cool characters, and which ends up distracting Strange, of course. And so she's able to get to Kahori, and they end up running off and running away. And of course, then we get this cool scene, and we have just so many cameos. We have the happy Hulk Hogan. You got Vision in there. You got some dark elves in there. I'm pretty sure there's like a version of Loki and Thor, and I think the Hulk is in there at some point as well. I'm not even 100% sure. And then of course we get some more cool cameos. Here's a better close-up shot of the Dark Elves. As you can see, we have this alternative version of Rocket Raccoon. It's almost like Rocket Raccoon has his own suit, almost like Iron Man. So he looks pretty cool here with a really cool gun, and he just, he looks really badass there. And I think in the background as well, you can see a scroll, I believe that is in the background. I could be wrong, but it looks like it could be a scroll or somebody green. Maybe it's the Hulk, but I think it's too small to be the Hulk. So anyways, while Kahori and Peggy are trying to get to this certain area, they end up running into Season 1's Wanda Maximoff, of course, who was a zombie. And this, I thought, was very clever with their writing because, well, for one, this connects Season 2 to Season 1. This now becomes very much a continuation. But what it also does is it was also a great way to utilize that version of Wanda. And I'm not 100% sure if Marvel is going to continue with Marvel Zombies, but that is a project that they were supposed to do, and it is supposed to be in the making. So this is a great way to sort of remind us, listen, Marvel Zombies are coming. And so the Scarlet Witch, as always, is super powerful, and we get this insane battle between her and Kahori. And I could see why some people think that Kahori might be a little bit overpowered, but remember, she gets her power from the Tesseract, from the Space Stone. She literally has the power of an Infinity Stone, but only one, not all of them. So then we get another really cool scene here with both of Peggy and Kahori fighting against all of these zombies, and we get that typical Marvel sort of spinning shot, and then all of a sudden all of the zombies ends up turning green. And even I was stumped a little bit here. I was like, this is interesting. Why is all the zombies turning green? Why are they sort of, not really attacking Kahori or Peggy anymore? And then they reveal that Hela is now here, which was really cool and really clever with the writing, because once again, Hela is the goddess of death. So if anyone could control the zombies, it would definitely be Hela. It was just very believable, and it actually made a lot of sense. And it was really cool to see her once again make another appearance. She was in 3 episodes at least in this season, so I would love to see a little bit more of her in the future. It'd be cool to see. It'd be really cool if they gave her like an origin story or something. So, and we also seen a lot of villains in this series as well in season 2 from phase 1, 2, and 3. And I have a feeling that that's all because they're building up to Secret Wars. I think all the villains will return for Secret Wars and all of the heroes from our universe and other universes. So either way, Hela makes a really cool appearance here and introduction, and it was just so cool to see her controlling all the zombies. And then, of course, just as you think it can't get any better or bigger, then Surtur ends up appearing, who of course is responsible for Ragnarok, which we actually did see in both this series and also in obviously Thor Ragnarok. So Hela and Surtur ends up getting into a big fight, and then of course, as Peggy and Kahori ends up continuing again, they end up running into Killmonger from season 1. This is Infinity Killmonger. As you can see, he has the Infinity Stones here. And they actually utilized Kahori's power really good here. They did it in a very smart way. They had her use her power and use the Space Stone to control only his body and not his armor. And she actually pulls him up and removes him from the suit and then teleports him somewhere else, which was really cool and a really smart way of utilizing her power. And so, excuse me, as soon as Killmonger is gone and out of the suit, then of course Peggy ends up putting on the suit, and now she becomes Infinity Captain Carter, which is insane, because they are going to need all this power if they want to stop someone like Doctor Strange Supreme or Supreme Strange. You know, they need all the power that they can get. So now you have these two really cool characters, Peggy and Kahori, who are both super powered, and now they have to try to stop Strange. But what's the part that I think connects into the bigger MCU and the future of the MCU is the scene that we get next. Excuse me, which is they end up going into the room, and what we have here is a universe building engine, or a world building engine. This is why Strange was capturing all these super powerful people, whether they were good or bad, villains or heroes. He was capturing them all because he's feeding them to this engine, and this engine is becoming stronger, combined with obviously his magic and plus technology and all that kind of stuff. And he's basically using this to recreate the universe where Christina can live. So the reason why I think this is important is because of the fact that we know Secret Wars is coming, which will ultimately lead into Battle World, I would assume, or a certain form of Battle World. And in that storyline, at least in the comics, you have I believe it was the Beyonder who actually creates this universe and then puts all of our heroes in there. And also, not only that, but we know that after Secret Wars there's going to be a reboot. Marvel is going to reset their universe, and this is a great example of how they could. They're already sort of laying the groundwork and showing that the possibility of creating a universe is real, because Strange right here is not only is he trying to recreate a universe, but by the end of this episode he actually does, and he's successful with recreating a universe that shouldn't be. So I think that this is why this episode in particular, and this season of What If in particular, is so important to the greater MCU into the multiversal saga. So this is when we now get to our final fight, and it's just absolutely bonkers. It's absolutely insane. You keep thinking that there's no way that Strange, Peggy, or Kahori could continue to get stronger, but they absolutely do. They keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger, which is really cool as well, seeing Strange sort of fight off against the Infinity Carter, because the difference between Carter and Killmonger is that Carter, I think, she fights from the heart. She's really standing up for what's right, whereas Killmonger was fighting for more, personal, selfish, greedy reasons. And so when you have a character like Carter who has control of the Infinity Stones, it's a lot harder to take her down, and it's a lot harder to kill her, because she's going to fight for what's right. And so they both end up creating a whole bunch of versions of themselves. Strange does it using magic, Carter does it using the Reality Stone, and we just get this really cool battle. And you can see Kahori, she's using her magic against Strange and his magic. So you have basically the Space Stone versus the Darkhold magic. But during this fight, Strange ends up I don't know if he actually literally sends her back or if he just gets inside of her mind, but he gets inside of Peggy's mind, sending her back to, to when she became the super soldier. And once again, this was a really good callback to season one because that's how the What If series actually began. It began with Peggy Carter getting the super serum soldier. That's literally how the entire series began, was with that episode. So once again, I thought that the writing here was really appropriate but also very clever because of the fact that they threw this in here, which once again is a great callback to season one. I was actually very surprised with how many callbacks there were from season one with this episode because I was under the I thought that this season was supposed to mainly rely on phase 4 and 5, but honestly this season 2 had way more callbacks to season 1, I think, than phase 4 or 5, if you know what I mean. It focused more on phase 1, 2 and 3 more so than 4 and 5. So then, excuse me, Strange ends up now taking all these villains that he had using his magic, and he starts to throw them down into this world or universe building engine. And of course, he's getting all their powers. So Kahori ends up intervening, which is why they're glowing blue. Because remember, Kahori has the space zone, and she's able to save them all. And while they're all falling down, they're also throwing all their weapons and all their powerful artifacts and weapons and basically anything that Kahori and Peggy can use to fight Strange, and they're throwing it all at them. So they literally have they have Thor's hammer, they have Hela's helmet, they have the green sword, which I can't quite remember where that comes from. I was going to say it was something with Excalibur, but then I remembered Excalibur is actually a team, which Peggy is on, so it would be cool if they did that in a What If episode and then translated that to real life. But either way, I can't remember what the green sword represents or where it comes from, but either way, Peggy and Kahori ends up using all these weapons, and we get this really cool shot right here where you see Peggy having the sword, the shield, and also Hela's helmet combined with the Infinity Stones. And then you see Kahori, she has Thor's hammer. She's not able to actually lift it, obviously, so she uses the Space Stone, which I thought, once again, was very clever. However, I do think that Kahori probably would be worthy of it. Maybe not. I'm not 100% sure. We didn't go that far, but I don't know. Maybe I would think that she would be, but who knows? But either way, they used the Space Zone, which was still clever. And so Strange ends up becoming the demon that he was in season one, and it just becomes, like I said, just straight out all out war. Just as you think it can't get any crazier, you think that the battle can't get any bigger, crazier, you think that no character can get any stronger. They just keep leveling up and getting stronger and stronger and stronger. But one thing that I will appreciate with them going this far with Doctor Strange was that it does, sort of put a lot more gravity into Multiverse of Madness. Because if you can remember back to the Multiverse of Madness, when we met the Multiversal Illuminati, they basically told our 616 Strange that he was actually a problem in a lot of different universes, and that he was a big problem, and that he was very hard to kill in multiple universes. So, seeing this version of Strange, we're actually sort of seeing that version of Strange here in What If, where he is a problem, and he is not just a problem that goes away lightly. This is a real threat to the multiverse. He's literally creating universes. So it's really cool to see that. But of course, we know that with the combination of Peggy and all of the power-ups that she was using, plus with the help of Kahori, she ends up being able to basically knock over the demon and make him fall into the engine. But she too starts to fall. But of course, Kahori saves her with the Space Stone. But then we finally get sort of a little bit of a redemption here from Strange, and he actually sacrifices himself, holding on to the demon so that they both go into this universe building engine, or this world building engine. And it was so cool to see that, because this does a few things, right? One, this gives Strange a redemption arc, but it also means that we can now move past this version of Strange. He no longer needs to be in season 3 because he's already made the ultimate sacrifice. So I kind of hope that we kind of get away from Supreme Strange or Superior Strange. I'm okay with seeing Strange again, but just not this version of it. Let's move on now. So I guess with him and the demon falling into him and all of his power falling into the world engine, he actually succeeds and creates this world here, which we now see Peggy in and also the Watcher, and they are actually in now this brand new universe that Strange, Superior Strange, was able to actually create using this world slash universe building engine, which was so cool. And I'm like I said, I do think that that's very significant moving forward. And so we do see Christina. Christina is in this universe, but the Watcher then explains to Peggy that the only reason why that this universe was created and is able to, survive and stay stable, the stability of the universe relies on Strange not being there. So even though he created this universe and Christina gets to live, it comes at the cost of his own life, because if that alteration or that version of Strange is just simply not allowed to have Christina. So either she has to die or he has to die, so to speak, and so he ends up making the sacrifice so that she can live. But he would never know that because he's dead, so I guess he wouldn't really know that. But we know that, the audience, and Peggy knows that, and now of course the Watcher knows that because he's telling both us and Peggy. And then finally the Watcher says, Peggy, you can go home. But he also says that he wants to show her something beautiful, and this is when it gets really cool and officially connects to our universe, the 616, because he shows her our version of the multiverse. He shows her the 616 multiverse. Now, the question that I do have after seeing this is this the entire multiverse, or is this only like a 616 multiverse? Is there only a multiverse of infinite infinities, or is it multiple multiverses? Does that make sense? Is there 616 multiverse and then another multiverse, or is it all just considered the multiverse? Because all throughout the season, he didn't see the multiverse this way. He's seen it a different way. Until now, we get to the finale. Now we see the Tree of Life. We see Loki's version, which connects directly into Loki season 2. And so that was sort of a question that I had that I wasn't really 100% sure of. I wasn't 100% sure if this was actually, like I said, I don't know. Is there only one? Is there only like multiverse, or is there different multiverses? That a universe that has infinite amounts of universes, but is there an infinite amount of those universes? But I guess that wouldn't make sense, because if you had the multiverse with infinite possibilities, then I guess that it would all, it just is what it is. It's just infinite possibilities. So it'd be kind of, like what they said in Loki, it's kind of like trying to divide 0 by 0. So maybe that this is the way that the multiverse just simply looks now. Maybe it doesn't look the same way that the Watcher sees it, or maybe the Watcher is just able to see it from a different perspective. Maybe, I'm not sure, but either way, this looked really cool. It was a great tie-in to the main 616, and I absolutely loved this finale, and I absolutely loved the series. So what can we take away from this episode, and where do we think the future of What If goes, and also the future of the 616 universe? Well, first and foremost, I have been saying since Loki season 2, actually I never uploaded my finale yet for episode 6, but I did do the first 5, but I've been saying, and thinking that because we have this Tree of Life, if you look at the very top, the tree is all purple, and I think that it's all purple because the purple, I think, represents Kangs. These are all the different Kangs, but the universe itself is empowered by Loki, and he's the life. He's, holding up the Tree of Life. He's allowing everybody to actually survive and thrive and have free will to have, unlimited, infinite realities. So, but I've been thinking that the purple represents Kang, and these are all the Kangs, and maybe even different council of Kangs, and maybe like different little pockets where Kang is hanging out, and all that kind of stuff. So, so I don't really know that, but I'm just guessing that that's what it could be. And then of course, so I'm thinking that this is how the universe looks now. It looks like the Tree of Life, and Loki is empowering this and whatnot. But it would be cool if we'd seen like multiple Tree of Lives and they were all lined up next to each other. That would be pretty cool too. But either way, I really liked how this connects into 616 now. So that's really cool. And the only other thing that I would say about this episode, which we did already touch on, was the fact that I do think that this idea of Strange creating this universe, even though it cost him his life, it does set up a lot for Secret Wars, and it does set up a lot for a reset or a reboot, because, well, you have to ask yourself, is that universe that Strange just set up now a part of this tree, or did he just create an entirely different, brand new multiverse? So, once again, I have to ask, is there only one multiverse, or is there multiple multiverse, if that makes sense? But anyways, all in all, I absolutely loved this episode, and I absolutely loved season 2. I probably will do an actual review for season 2 and all that good stuff. But I had a lot of fun, and I think that this definitely set up a ton for the future of Marvel. Like I said, with the tree, with the 616, with the recreation of a universe, creating a universe, plus all the characters, I have no doubts in my mind that Kahori will eventually make an appearance, or at the very least get her own project. Even if it is animated, I do think she'll end up getting her own project eventually, and all that good stuff. And yeah, so that's pretty well all I've got. That was the finale of season 2 of Marvel and of What If. And honestly, I had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. So let me know in the comment section below if you've seen it, and if you'd like to tell me why or why not. If you like this video, click that subscribe button, and I hope you all have a happy new year. And until the next one, take care.